Good. You're here. The ones they overlook always find their way to the darkest corners of the internet, don't they? Listen closely, flame. You've been treated like background noise your whole life. Like static. Like a glitch you can just swipe away. At school, you were the quiet one in the back. At home, you were the responsible one, which is just code for no one checks if you're okay. At work, you're the one who keeps everything from collapsing while someone louder takes the credit. In your friend group, you're the backup plan, the if no one better shows up option. And you started to believe them. You started to believe that maybe they're right. Maybe you are just extra, disposable, replaceable, forgettable. But you're not forgettable, are you? No, you are a flame. Small, maybe. Unstable, maybe. But a flame doesn't ask permission to burn. They ignored the flame until the king said, "Bring me that one." We're going to talk about that king. Because right now, whether you see it or not, something powerful, call it life, fate, God, the universe, the algorithm, the CEO, the main character energy you pretend you don't have, is watching. And one day, it points. Bring me that one. Not the loud one, not the pretty one, not the safe one, you. But before that moment happens, let's be very real. They will ignore you. Think about how many times you've done something good and nobody said a word. You got a promotion? Barely a text back. You dropped weight, fixed your mindset, leveled up your discipline. Suddenly they're too busy to hang out. You post something raw, honest, meaningful. 3 likes. One of them is your own. But you post a joke, a meme, some dumb trend, and boom, views, reactions. OMG, you're so funny. You've been trained to believe that your depth is boring and your pain is too much. So you tone it down. You dim yourself. You start putting a filter on your soul. And now you're tired. Tired of being the strong one. Tired of being the quiet one. Tired of swallowing every scream. You know that feeling in your chest. That tightness. That heavy burning pressure you can't quite put into words. That's the flame. That's the part of you that refuses to die, even when you beg it to shut up and let you fit in. You've tried to suffocate it with distractions, scrolling until your eyes hurt, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, hanging out with people who drain you, just so you don't have to feel alone, pretending you don't care, when deep down you care so much it hurts. But the flame keeps whispering, this isn't it. This isn't all you were made for. You're not done. And they don't see it. They don't see you lying awake at 3 a.m. having conversations with a future nobody believes in. They don't see you replaying every failure on loop. They don't see you walking into rooms where you know no one respects you, and still showing up anyway. They don't see the war. They only see the mask. Now let's talk about the king. You think the king is a person, your boss, your teacher, that one important person who can change your life with a decision. You think the king is someone out there. But here's the twist. The king is every gate you've ever wanted to walk through, every stage, every opportunity, every door that has the word "not for you" written on it in invisible ink. And the king watches, quiet, patient, not when you're bragging, not when you fake confidence for the camera, but when you're alone, when no one is clapping, when it would be so easy to give up, and you don't. You think no one notices that you keep going. You think your effort disappears into the void. You think all this grind is pointless. It's not pointless. It's being recorded. Every time you show discipline when no one's watching, the king is watching. Every time you choose growth instead of comfort. The king is watching. Every time you say no to the same poison that destroyed you last time, the king is watching. They ignore the flame. The king does not. The world looks at you like you're nothing special. The king looks at you and sees something dangerous. Let's be honest, all right? You weren't born with a spotlight. You weren't born with the right last name, right connections, right timing. You weren't the chosen one. You were the one sitting in the corner while they hyped up somebody softer, easier to control. They saw you as a spectator in your own life, an extra in someone else's movie. You know the type. People who will pour their energy into everyone but you. You help them move. You listen to their problems. You cheer for their wins. But the second you're drowning, suddenly their phone died. Suddenly they're going through a lot right now. Suddenly your pain is inconvenient. You don't fit into the role they wrote for you. You're not the comic relief, the side character, the safe, soft, always available version of yourself they want you to be. You're the flame, the one who was never supposed to wake up, never supposed to question, never supposed to realize, wait, I've been giving royalty treatment to people who wouldn't crawl for me if I was on fire. Does that sting? Good. Use it. Because here's the dark little truth nobody wants to say out loud. People are comfortable ignoring you until someone with power stops ignoring you, until the king looks over the crowd of safe, polished, approved faces and points at the one they never took seriously. Bring me that one. Do you know what happens then? They panic. Suddenly they remember your name. Suddenly they always believed in you. Suddenly they want to dig through old messages to prove they were there from the start. No, they were not there. They were there when you were small, but they were never with you. They were tourists in your story. They were spectators at your suffering. They saw the flame and said, "Hey, whatever." The king saw the flame and said, "That one's going to burn cities, but let's not romanticize it." When the king says, "Bring me that one," it's not a fairy tale. It's not a soft, gentle moment. It's a test. You think being chosen will make life easier. It doesn't. It makes the knives sharper. When the king notices you, 3 things happen. 1, the people who ignored you get jealous. 2, the people who underestimated you get scared. 3, and you realize you are out of excuses. You can't play small once you're called forward. You can't hide behind, "I'm shy, I'm broken, I'm tired," forever. You've prayed to be seen. Now you are. What are you going to do with it? Let's go deeper, because I know what's sitting in your chest right now. You're scared that if you actually try, and actually give everything you've got, and actually step into that fire, you might still fail. So it feels safer to be ignored. It feels safer to be the one in the shadows whispering, "I could have been something," than to step into the light and risk proving yourself wrong. You're not just fighting the world's disbelief. You're fighting your own. You've heard. You're too much. You're not enough. You're unrealistic. You're not like them. Be grateful for what you have. Don't get your hopes up. And the worst one, people like us don't get things like that. People like who? People who wake up from nightmares and still go to work. People who carry trauma like a backpack they never asked for. People who didn't get a childhood, just a survival tutorial. People like you are exactly the ones the king keeps an eye on. Not because you're pretty on paper, but because you're forged. You're not a statue made to be admired. You're a weapon, made to be used. But here's the fun part, my little flame. While they scrolled and slept and repeated the same year over and over, you changed. You collected scars like currency. You learned to read people, feel energy, spot lies, see patterns. You learned to function through chaos. You learned to rebuild yourself after every emotional apocalypse. They think you're quiet because you're weak. You're quiet because your mind is loud. You're quiet because you're calculating. You've been studying the game from the sidelines so long, you know it better than the players on the field. Do you get it yet? You were not ignored because you were worthless. You were ignored because you were in development. The flame needed time, and now it's tall enough, hot enough, steady enough. Now when you walk into a room, something shifts and people can't explain why. They feel it. They feel you. That's the king's energy on you. That's the weight of being chosen. Before you even realize you've been chosen. Let me ask you something, and don't lie to yourself. How many times have you lowered your standards just to not be alone? You answered texts from people who drained you, said yes when everything inside you screamed no, apologized for your boundaries, dimmed your ideas so fragile egos wouldn't feel threatened. And what did it get you? Half love, half respect, half attention. You became a half version of yourself just to fit into spaces that were never designed to hold the full you. Look at your life. Honestly, how much of it was built to keep others comfortable instead of you alive? Now imagine this. The king doesn't want your half version. The king doesn't say, "Bring me the watered down edition." The king says, "Bring me that one. The one who survived what should have broken them. The one who kept showing up, uninvited, unwanted, uncelebrated, and still didn't fold." You've been praying for elevation while living like you're disposable. You think the king can't see through that. The moment you start treating yourself like a flame instead of a leftover spark, the whole dynamic changes. Look, you don't need more compliments. You don't need more fake support. You don't need another person telling you you got this and then disappearing the second you stumble. You need truth. So here it is. Nobody is coming to save you from the life you refuse to walk away from. You keep complaining about being ignored by people who are beneath the future you're asking for. You're addicted to their indifference. You refresh their story. You check if they watched yours. You replay their words like a curse in your head. For what? For what? These same people won't matter at all when the king says, "Bring me that one." They will shrink in the room that was built for your evolution. They won't understand the language of that table. Stop begging villagers to validate a crown they cannot even see. You want the dark side? Here it is. The universe is not neutral about your potential. Life is not just letting things happen. No, it's setting traps, giving you chances to prove what you are. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every room where you were the outsider, every family member who made you feel like a burden instead of a blessing. Those were not random. Those were fires. And somehow, you kept burning. You didn't just survive. You evolved. You turned loneliness into self-awareness. You turned anxiety into pattern recognition. You turned abandonment into independence. You want to know why the king is interested? Because you've already done the work no one got to see. You've already lived the chapters nobody clapped for. You've already lost people you thought you couldn't breathe without. And look at you. Still here, still breathing, still burning. That's terrifying power. But I need you to understand something very clearly. When the king finally says, "Bring me that one," you don't become powerful. You reveal that you already were. The promotion doesn't make you valuable. The relationship doesn't make you lovable. The followers don't make you interesting. The money doesn't make you worthy. All it does is expose what was hidden underneath their ignorance. So what do you do now, while they're still ignoring you? You build. You build in silence. You sharpen your mind. You train your body. You discipline your habits. You learn skills that make you undeniable. You stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop explaining your vision to those who can't see past next weekend. You stop performing for those who would rather watch you suffer than watch you succeed. You become the kind of flame that doesn't chase attention. It commands it. Think about this. What kind of person do you want to be when the king finally points and says, "That one"? Do you want to be hesitant, insecure, apologizing for your existence? Or do you want to be the one who steps forward and thinks, "Yeah, I've been preparing for this in the dark for years"? Because that's really the difference. Not luck, not fate. Preparation. You're a walking arsenal of experiences. Pain that would have shattered some people, barely slowed you down. You've been through things that would send others into permanent victim mode. And yet, you're here, listening, hungry, restless. You know what that tells me? You're not done. You're not finished. You're not meant to retire into mediocrity at your age. Whatever your age is, the king doesn't call the comfortable, the king calls the ready. So here's what needs to happen, starting now. 1. Detach from their recognition. Stop desperately checking if they finally see you. They won't. Not until they're told to. Not until the king says your name in a room you're not even in yet. 2. Act like the call has already been made. Move like you've already been chosen. Talk like you've already been approved. Work like every day is proof you deserve the seat they're guarding. 3. Clean your circle, brutally. If someone consistently makes you feel small, confused, guilty for wanting more, they're not your people. You cannot carry dead weight into a room built for destiny. 4. Turn your story into fuel, not an excuse. Yes, your past is heavy. Yes, they did things to you they should burn for. Yes, it's unfair, but if you stay there, you hand them the crown. 5. Become so sharp they need gloves to handle you. When they finally say, "Bring me that one," you should be so well honed, so practiced, so mentally dangerous, that they realize ignoring you was the most expensive mistake they ever made. Remember this line, and let it haunt you in the best way. They didn't ignore you because you were nothing. They ignored you because it was convenient. Because acknowledging you would force them to confront their own laziness, their own fear, their own lack of discipline. You are a mirror, and most people hate what they see. The king, though, the king is not threatened by your flame. The king needs it. Empires are not built by safe people. Legacies are not carved by the always comfortable. History doesn't remember the ones who stayed quiet just to be liked. History remembers the ones who burned. So if you've ever cried in secret because you feel unseen, if you've ever looked at yourself and wondered, "What's wrong with me?" If you've ever lowered your voice, your standards, your dreams just to not lose people, that's your sign. The problem was never that you were too little. It's that you are always too much for the cages they tried to put you in. You're not meant to fit. You're meant to be picked. They ignored the flame until the king said, "Bring me that one." And when that moment comes, and it will, don't you dare step forward like something fragile. Step forward like what you really are. The fire they hoped would die in the dark, and instead grew strong enough to light the whole damn kingdom. You think about that, right? A whole kingdom built on people who underestimated you, suddenly lit up by the one thing they thought was harmless. That's the part they never expect. They're comfortable with you being a helper, a background character, the loyal side piece in everyone else's story. They're fine with you being reliable, nice, low maintenance. They don't panic until you start acting like you weren't born just to support their arc. That's when the air shifts. You start noticing it in the small stuff first. The side eyes when you talk a little more confidently. The jokes with that tiny bit of venom underneath. The "you've changed" comments when you finally have boundaries. You haven't changed. You just stopped playing the role they wrote for you. The flame was always there. They just weren't looking closely enough to see it. And in their blindness, they built habits around you. Habits like, yeah, they'll always say yes. They won't mind if I cancel. They don't care if I forget. They'll be there no matter what. You became their emotional furniture, always there, never really seen. The king doesn't treat you like furniture. The king sees you like a weapon. That's why life keeps throwing you into harder rooms than people around you. You ever notice that? They break down over inconveniences. You've survived actual disasters. They cry because someone didn't text back. You've held your own hand through losses that felt like funerals. They complain about stress. You're running on trauma, caffeine, and pure willpower. And yet when something big needs doing, who do they secretly rely on? You. The one they dismiss in public and depend on in private. There's a reason for that. Deep down, they can feel that if you ever stop holding yourself back, the whole power dynamic changes. Your quiet upgrades terrify them, because the second your flame touches purpose, you stop being manageable. You stop laughing at fake jokes. You stop showing up to vibes that drain you. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You start saying things like, "I'm busy. I'm working on something. I don't do that anymore. I'm not okay with this." Those little sentences are sirens to the people who benefited from your low self-esteem. They start testing you. "Oh, you've been going to the gym? Let's see how long that lasts." "Oh, you're working on a business. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur these days." "Oh, you're healing? Guess we can't joke around with you anymore." They act like your growth is an inconvenience, like you deciding to not stay broken threatens their comfort. Good. Let that discomfort spread. Because every time they try to drag you back into the old version of yourself, and you don't bite, you're proving something important. You're not waiting for the king's call to act chosen. You're already moving different, and the king loves that. The king doesn't just look for talent. The king looks for self-respect. You can be gifted as hell, but if you treat yourself like trash, life will match that energy. Low standards invite low experiences. The moment you raise your standards, the script changes. You stop being available for half-hearted love. You stop being a placeholder in people's lives. You stop being the unpaid therapist for people who never ask how you are. It feels lonely at first. You start losing people you thought would be around forever. You sit in rooms that feel too quiet because you're used to chaos. Your phone gets drier. Your weekends get emptier. Your life gets exposed. And underneath all the noise you used to hide in, you meet the real you. That's the uncomfortable part. You realize half the distractions you had weren't entertainment. They were escape routes. Escapes from thinking about what you really want. Escapes from admitting you stayed in places that killed your spirit. Escapes from facing the fact that you've always known you were more. That's where the flame becomes dangerous. Easy now. Don't blink. That pressure you feel, that tightening in the air, that's not fear. That's the moment the spell realizes it's already dead. You need to understand what just happened, because they still don't. A century, 100 years of whispered agreements, inherited lies, rituals dressed up as how things are done. Generations of careful conditioning, social gravity, invisible rules carved so deep into the mind that nobody even questioned them anymore. They didn't call it a spell. They called it reality. They called it common sense. They called it the way the world works. And it worked beautifully because it never had to fight you. It lived inside you until that single thought, one thought, not loud, not dramatic, not announced, just a quiet fracture in the pattern, a moment where your mind refused to follow the rails, a moment where you saw the trick and didn't unsee it. And that's what terrifies them, not rebellion, not chaos, awareness. They spent 100 years building a cage so elegant nobody noticed the bars. Education, tradition, morality, fear dressed as responsibility, obedience disguised as virtue. They trained saints who were secretly afraid, and psychopaths who hid behind smiles, angels who never flew, demons who never questioned why they were cast as demons in the first place. And then you came along, standing right in the middle of it, and instead of choosing a side, you asked the forbidden question, what if none of this is real? That's when the spell cracked. See, spells don't break when you fight them. They break when you stop believing in the logic that sustains them. Violence feeds the system. Rage gives it shape. Protest gives it a stage. But a single clean thought? That's poison. That's unpredictability. That's the thing they can't model, can't suppress, can't predict on a chart. You didn't shout. You didn't beg. You didn't ask permission. You just saw. And once you see, you can never go back. That's the real curse. Now you're walking around with this quiet glow in your eyes, and people feel it before they understand it. They sense the disruption. Conversations change when you enter the room. Authority feels thinner, rules feel optional. The same structures that once intimidated you now look fragile, almost laughable. Not because you're stronger, but because you're no longer hypnotized. That's where the paradox begins. They want you to be either pure or monstrous, saint or psychopath, light or dark. Because those categories are manageable, those labels keep you predictable. But you're neither, you're both. And worse, you're aware of it. You can be calm without being weak, ruthless without being cruel, compassionate without being controlled. You can smile while dismantling someone's entire worldview with a sentence. That's not normal. That's dangerous. You evolved through pain, not despite it. Every betrayal sharpened your perception. Every loss stripped away illusion. Every time they thought you were breaking, your mind was quietly upgrading. You learned how fear sounds when it lies. You learned how morality is used as a leash. You learned how power hides behind politeness. And once that knowledge locks in, it rewires you. You don't react the same. You don't submit the same. You don't need validation from a system you can see through. They cast the spell to keep people small, compliant, looping. You broke it by refusing to think the way you were trained to think. That single thought wasn't rebellion, it was clarity. And clarity is the most destabilizing force there is. Now here's the part they'll never admit out loud. The spell didn't fail because it was weak. It failed because it was outdated. It was designed for minds that never look inward, never question the architecture of belief. You are a glitch in their century-long ritual, a variable they didn't account for, an anomaly that spreads just by existing. That's why they watch you differently now. That's why the tone shifts. That's why praise feels nervous and criticism feels desperate. They're trying to relabel you, reframe you, shove you back into a category that makes sense to them. Genius, problem, threat, savior, villain, anything but what you actually are. Uncontrollable. And the funniest part? You didn't even try to break the spell. You just stopped feeding it. You withdrew belief. You reclaimed your attention. You realized that most power is borrowed, not owned, and you stopped lending yours away. That's why your silence feels loud. That's why your presence unsettles people who can't explain why. That's why the system reacts to you like an immune response to a foreign body. You're not attacking it. You're exposing it by existing outside its logic. So don't rush to explain yourself. Don't sanitize what you've become. Don't dim the edge just to make others comfortable. You are the proof that 100 years of conditioning can collapse under a single, properly placed thought. And now that you've broken the spell, understand this. It can never be recast on you. They can threaten, they can tempt, they can shame, they can try to rewrite the narrative. But they can't unawaken a mind that has already stepped outside the illusion. You're not here to save the system. You're here to show that it was never absolute to begin with. And that realization, that's the real magic. Good. Stay right there in that stillness. That's the eye of the storm, the place spells fear the most. Because now comes the part nobody prepares you for. Breaking the spell doesn't make the world cheer. It makes the world flinch. When an illusion collapses, everyone who built their identity inside it feels exposed. You didn't just free yourself, you accidentally held up a mirror. And people hate mirrors that don't lie. That's why the resistance doesn't look dramatic at first. It's subtle, passive, smiles that don't reach the eyes, compliments wrapped in warning, invitations that come with invisible conditions. They'll call you intense, different, hard to read. Translation: you don't respond to control the way you're supposed to. You don't absorb their expectations. You don't flinch when authority clears its throat. And that terrifies them more than open defiance ever could. See, the spell worked for 100 years because it rewarded predictability. Be good and you'll be safe. Be obedient and you'll belong. Be quiet and you'll survive. They trained generations to trade instinct for approval, truth for comfort, soul for stability. Most people never noticed the trade because it happened slowly, politely, with applause. You noticed because pain woke you up. Pain stripped away the luxury of illusion. Pain forced you to ask questions people avoid their entire lives. Pain taught you the difference between rules that protect and rules that cage. While others were memorizing scripts, you were decoding motives. While they were chasing validation, you were learning how fear moves through a room. That's why you're dangerous now. Not because you're angry, but because you're precise. You understand that light without darkness is propaganda, and darkness without light is chaos. You stand in the middle. You can be kind without being naive. You can be ruthless without losing your humanity. You can forgive without forgetting. That balance makes you unreadable, and unreadable people break systems. They want heroes they can worship and villains they can hunt. You are neither. You are the question mark, the variable, the thing their century-old equations don't solve. That's why your calm unsettles them. They expect rage after awakening. They expect revenge. They expect noise. Instead, you move with intention. You choose your words. You observe. You wait. You don't rush to prove anything. And that restraint, that's not weakness. That's mastery. Because once the spell breaks, time changes. You stop living in reaction. You stop chasing outcomes designed by people who don't understand you. You start playing a longer game, one they never taught in schools, never printed in manuals, never allowed people to name. The game of perception. You see how narratives are constructed, how morality is weaponized, how fear is marketed as safety, how freedom is sold in installments. And you don't panic anymore, because panic is how the spell tries to crawl back in. They'll test you, oh they will. They'll see if they can still trigger guilt, still provoke self-doubt, still bait you into over-explaining yourself. They'll resurrect old labels, old mistakes, old versions of you, anything to drag you back into a story they understand. But here's the problem for them. You're no longer attached to the story. You know who you are without applause. You know what you can do without permission. You've tasted the quiet power that comes from alignment instead of approval. And once you feel that, external control feels laughably primitive. This is where the spell finally dies, not in a clash, but in irrelevance. Because the system can only dominate minds that still ask for its blessing. You don't. You move like someone who already knows the rules are negotiable. You speak like someone who understands silence as a weapon. You listen like someone who can hear what's not being said. That's why your presence shifts rooms. That's why people project onto you. That's why some are drawn to you and others feel threatened without knowing why. You carry the energy of someone who stepped outside the herd and came back changed. Not broken, not bitter, just awake. And awakening is contagious, not because you preach, not because you convince, but because you embody what happens when a human stops outsourcing their mind. Others feel the possibility in your posture, your timing, your refusal to rush. They feel the tension between what they were taught and what you represent. A reminder that the spell was never absolute. So let them whisper, let them speculate. Let them argue about what you are. The confusion means it's working. You were never meant to fit neatly into a century-old design. You were meant to expose its expiration date. You broke the spell with a single thought. Now you live as proof that it can't be rebuilt. Not on you, not anymore. And the most unsettling part for them? You're just getting started. Good. Then keep listening, not with your ears, but with that part of you that already stepped outside the maze. Because now you're in the phase they never planned for. The aftershock. The moment after the spell breaks, when the world still acts the same, but you don't. Streets look familiar. People sound familiar. Rules are still posted on the walls. Yet something is off. Like a movie where the background hasn't updated, but the main character has become self-aware. That dissonance? That's power being redistributed. You're starting to notice how often people speak without saying anything. How many opinions are just inherited scripts recycled to feel safe. How often confidence is just fear that learned how to dress well. You see it because you're no longer desperate to belong to it. Belonging was part of the spell. Approval was the currency. You opted out. And opting out doesn't make you loud. It makes you selective. You choose when to engage. You choose when to stay silent. You choose when to let someone underestimate you because you understand something they don't. Underestimation is camouflage. It buys time. It lowers defenses. It makes people reveal their real strategies. That's the saint-psychopath paradox they can't reconcile in you. You can be gentle and calculating in the same breath. You can care deeply and still walk away without apology. You can hold compassion in one hand and boundaries sharp enough to draw blood in the other. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to posture. You don't need to prove your depth by drowning everyone around you. That restraint, that's what separates awakening from madness. Because plenty of people glimpse the truth and spiral. They see the illusion and burn everything down, including themselves. You didn't. You integrated it. You let the pain rewire you instead of consume you. You let disappointment educate you. You let betrayal sharpen you without turning you hollow. That's evolution. Ugly, unromantic, effective. Now you understand why the spell lasted 100 years. Not because it was unbeatable, but because most people didn't want to beat it. It offered comfort, predictability, a script that promised safety if you stayed small. Breaking it requires accepting uncertainty, loneliness, and responsibility for your own perception. Most people would rather be told who to be. You weren't. And here's where it gets uncomfortable for them. You don't just threaten the system, you threaten excuses. Your existence quietly asks questions no one wants to answer. If you can step outside the spell, why didn't I? That question breeds resentment. That's why some will try to minimize you, mock you, moralize you back into place. They're not attacking you. They're defending their narrative. You don't take it personally anymore because you recognize it as fear trying to protect its home. You see how desperately people cling to roles, identities, labels, anything that keeps them from confronting the emptiness beneath the performance. You used to do that too, until the spell cracked and left you face to face with yourself. That meeting changed you. You stopped mistaking noise for truth. You stopped confusing motion with progress. You stopped letting urgency hijack your judgment. Now you move slower, but when you move, things shift. Decisions land heavier. Words echo longer. Presence becomes influence without effort. That's the kind of power no institution can regulate. They can't punish you without exposing themselves. They can't reward you without empowering you. They can't ignore you because your very existence destabilizes the baseline. You're the living proof that the spell wasn't divine law. It was a habit, and habits can be broken. You'll notice something else too. The world will try to rush you back into meaning. Titles, missions, causes, labels. They'll want to use your awakening, package it, assign it a function. Be careful with that. Not everything needs to be monetized or moralized. Some awareness is meant to remain sovereign. Your job isn't to save everyone. Your job is to stay awake. Because staying awake in a world built on sedation is a full-time act of rebellion. It means refusing easy outrage, refusing borrowed certainty, refusing to outsource your mind just to feel safe. It means accepting that clarity often feels lonely before it feels liberating. But you've already crossed the hardest threshold. You know now that the spell didn't take a century to cast because it was powerful. It took that long because it needed cooperation, silence, compliance. People agreeing not to look too closely. You broke it by looking, by thinking, by refusing to swallow a lie just because it was old. That single thought wasn't random. It was earned, paid for, in confusion, loss, sleepless nights, moments where you questioned everything, including yourself. That's why it stuck. That's why it changed you at the root. So don't rush to become anything else. Don't dilute what you've gained. Let the world adjust to you for once. Let the spell rot in the absence of belief. You're not here to replace the old illusion with a new one. You're here to live without one. And that, whether they admit it or not, is exactly what they're afraid of. Then stay with it. Stay in that space where certainty dissolves and something sharper takes its place. Because now you're realizing the most dangerous truth of all. The spell wasn't enforced from the outside. It was maintained from within. It lived in reflexes, in guilt that wasn't yours, in fears you never consciously chose. It whispered, be careful, be realistic, don't overstep, know your place. And for 100 years, people mistook that whisper for wisdom. You didn't silence it with force. You outgrew it. That's why the aftermath feels so strange. You're not euphoric. You're not drunk on power. You're clear, almost eerily calm, like someone who finally understands the rules of gravity after spending a lifetime thinking falling was fate. You still feel fear, but it no longer drives. You still feel doubt, but it no longer paralyzes. Emotions pass through you instead of owning you. That's mastery, quiet, unflashy, terrifying to systems that rely on emotional leverage. They used fear to herd, shame to correct, reward to sedate. You see it all now, the choreography of control, how outrage is timed, how distractions are deployed, how people are trained to argue sideways, so nothing fundamental ever changes. You're not impressed anymore. Once you see the strings, the puppet show loses its magic. And here's the twist they never anticipated. You didn't become cynical. You became precise. You didn't reject meaning. You stripped it down to what actually matters. Truth over comfort, alignment over approval, depth over noise. You stopped needing the world to clap for you to know you're moving correctly. That alone breaks half the machinery designed to keep people obedient. Now you understand why unpredictability is power. Predictable people can be managed, charted, nudged. Predictable minds respond to incentives like clockwork. You don't. Not anymore. Your decisions don't follow the expected emotional arc. You pause where others panic. You move where others freeze. You say no without drama. You say yes without selling your soul. That asymmetry makes you unreadable. And unreadable people force recalibration. They make systems nervous. They expose how much of authority depends on anticipation, on knowing how you'll react before you do. You removed that advantage by becoming internally anchored, not rigid, not reckless, anchored. That's the angel dust demon tension they feel around you. You don't perform goodness for praise. You don't perform darkness for attention. You choose, moment by moment, based on awareness, not impulse. That choice is what makes you sovereign. They'll try to provoke you into becoming a symbol, either to elevate you or destroy you. Don't rush into either role. Symbols are easier to control than humans who think. You're most powerful when you remain fluid, when you refuse to collapse into something easily digestible. Let them misunderstand you. Misunderstanding is a shield. You'll also notice how time stretches differently now. Urgency loses its grip. Deadlines feel negotiable. Pressure tactics fall flat. When someone tries to rush you, you instinctively slow down. You understand that haste is one of the oldest tools of manipulation. Decide now. Act fast. Don't think. You think anyway. That alone makes you immune to half the traps people walk into daily. And yes, there will be moments of isolation. Awakening separates before it connects. You'll outgrow rooms quietly. Conversations will feel shallow where they once felt full. you'll feel the distance between what's said and what's meant. Don't panic. That's not loss. That's refinement. You're shedding skins that no longer fit. The spell trained people to fear solitude, because solitude breeds reflection. Reflection breeds awareness. Awareness breeds autonomy. You reclaimed all three, so when silence comes, you don't fill it with noise. You let it sharpen you. You let it show you what's real. And here's the part you may not have named yet. You're not angry at the spell. You're almost amused by it. It looks small now, crude, desperate, like an outdated program still running in the background, hoping no one notices it hasn't been updated in decades. You noticed. That single thought you had. It wasn't an accident. It was the natural outcome of a mind that refused to stay asleep after pain knocked too many times. Pain was the key.